Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here. I just can't stop obsessing about things. So this is going to be Sleepy Vlog 18.1. Just continuing. I think as soon as I finished the Sleepy Vlog 18, I immediately thought of all the things I had wanted to say that I didn't. I'd been talking about missing comic books, and of course every time I hear there's a new Daredevil out, I'm particularly sad I can't go read it right now. And the Francavilla Batman. The more we see of Francavilla's art, Francavilla, the more we, or at least some of us, are in tune with what he's doing and want to see even more. And I heard the Batwoman was really great, and so I really want to get that. And also of interest to me, something I was really sort of paying close attention to before it came out was the Batman Superman book written by Greg Pak, who is a writer whose work at Marvel I've really liked. The World War Hulk, not the World War Hulk, the Planet Hulk stuff. I don't think I read World War Hulk. And then his incredible Hercules run, and then his Extreme X-Men, which was one of those really minor X books that only survived 12 issues, 16 issues. In fact, I thought it was interesting that Greg Pak, who was briefly kind of a star at Marvel with Planet Hulk and some other things, was kind of sidelined at Marvel. And now he's at DC, and they're putting him on major books. Not only is he doing Batman and Superman, but he's going to be picking up the reins on Action Comics, which in many ways is even though Batman sells best, Action Comics is kind of the standard bearer, or should be, for DC Comics. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do at DC. Hopefully he's a good fit with DC. It seems strange to me the way Marvel let him go. It feels like they let him go by putting him in on a small book and letting that book just shrivel on the vine. But maybe it was more about his choices. Who knows? It seems like I'm constantly trying to figure out differences between Marvel and DC, again being overly obsessive, and why I tend to like DC better now. One thing that Marvel does is they have these architects, their top writers, who are clearly their top writers and are given the best books and everything. Jonathan Hickman and Brian Michael Bendis being the ultimate one, and Matt Fraction, and it was Ed Brubaker, who's left now, and I guess Jason Aaron and Rick Remender. And the other writers are kind of in the shadows, and they left Greg Pak in the shadows for whatever reason, however that works. DC doesn't seem to work that way. I mean, to some extent, Scott Snyder calls the shots, and the other Bat books have to follow along, but it doesn't feel like everything's based on writers so much as on editorial directions and stuff. I mean, writers are still important. And a writer who I was associating with DC, I guess, mostly just because of iVampire, and then he was going to go on and do a couple of Green Lantern books, or Lantern books, is Joshua Hale Fialkov. And I do still get my smattering of Marvel subscriptions. I have about 6 or 7 of them. And one of them is the Ultimates, which I've never been talking about because it was being written by Sam Humphries, and every issue I would kind of pick it up and put it back on my to-be-read pile. So I hadn't read most of Sam Humphries' run on Ultimates yet. But now Josh Hale Fialkov was coming on, and I thought, well, I'll just, even though I have all these other issues to read, I'll see how he's doing. And I was immediately gripped. I immediately wanted to read more Ultimates all of a sudden, when before I was kind of bored. I kind of think of Hale Fialkov as a DC writer. I would have liked to have seen him do more DC. And maybe he'll do good work at Marvel. I'm curious to see if he'll fit in there. Same way with Brian Wood. I kind of wish I could see him do DC work. But anyway, so this Ultimates was going to be my last issue. The subscription was ending. So that's another time I broke my rule and I renewed this subscription. Because I'm not going to want to pay $4 for this. But at the subscription rate, the Marvel Mail subscription rate, I'm happy to read Ultimates written by Fialkov. Although I'm worried, what if the events of the Ultron event are going to lead to the elimination of the Ultimate Universe? I was looking at some sales figures from the early 2000s, and the Marvel's Ultimate books were all their best-selling books then, and now their Ultimate books are amongst their low sellers. The art in here was also very good. I keep flashing pages. They seem to sell in the 20,000 range now. So it would make sense if Marvel just wants to kind of get rid of them. But their golden boy Brian Michael Bendis has his new version of the Ultimate Spider-Man, which he probably wants to hang on to, Miles Morales. So I wonder if they're going to do some kind of trick where they merge the Ultimate Universe back in, but keep Miles Morales in the Marvel Universe. We'll see. That's just my guess as to a possible direction. Speaking of Marvel, JC Seiji had a contest, it's probably over now actually, where he asked people to PM him, personal message him, your thoughts on the one thing Marvel could do the one problem with Marvel and the one thing they could do to improve their company. And I thought about it, and I now kind of wish he had asked people to do videos, although he probably would have gotten less responses. And so what I actually, at first I was just going to give some glib answer, prices are too high. That's my real big problem with them. The double shipping, the not going for many of their edge characters, they've really glommed onto just their mainstream superheroes right now. Like you don't see a Ghost Rider book or Swamp Thing Man Thing or whatever. It's just more Avengers, more X-Men, more Avengers, more X-Men. So what do I... but those I decided were symptoms. And what I would really like to see Marvel do, it's probably impossible, is disattach itself from a big corporate mothership. Become a small company again that just does what it does. And I think a lot of what we see of Marvel, where they're squeezing every possible penny out of readers, even if that's going to hurt the comic book field in the long run, is the result of the corporate masters, of being a part of a big corporation. DC has that problem too, but it seems like Marvel is, for me, I'm particularly noticed that with Marvel. So I think it would be good for the long run of the comic book industry if it were all small companies. The very best Marvel work happened when Marvel was this tiny company with just Stan Lee and a few people in the office and a few freelancers. So that it's part of this giant chain of command is a real problem, I think. So that's my fantasy solution to what would fix Marvel Comics. He didn't ask what would fix DC Comics, and maybe that's a similar answer would be true for them. And this may be why, Image Comics and Dark Horse Comics are the place to look for interesting stuff. So yeah, another ongoing concern is always that, comic books aren't doing as well. They don't have as big of a readership as we all think they should. We all love comics. And I'm convinced there's lots of people out there who would like to read comics, but it's hard for them. And of the fathers of daughters that are my daughter's age, the person I like the most is interested in comic books. He read them as a kid, and I believe he keeps trying every now and then to pick stuff up. And he, but mostly he like picks up old stuff because he doesn't know what else to get. And he told me recently about having this urge to read comic books, and he went into the comic book store that's very near my house, and tried to find something, but he just couldn't figure out what was good, if anything was good. And I think there's lots good. So I immediately loaned him Saga and Fatale, because I figured those are ones that are going to grab someone who's now a sophisticated reader but still has a love for comics, or a potential love for comics. And books that are coming out now, he can jump onto those if he likes those first trades. I do expect those trades back from him, and I get a little nervous loaning out things. But anyhow, if I were to set up a comic book store, I would have a shelf near the front of the store designed to seduce in returning readers or people looking for something good. An adult shelf maybe, and a kid's shelf. In some comic book stores, they may have shelves like that, but they're tucked away somewhere. I haven't seen it where you walk in and one of the first things you see is a shelf with kind of recommended reading or what's hot now, something like that. Because I suspect there's lots of people who dip their toes into the comic book store, can't really figure out what's what, and don't come back. I think there have been moments in my reading career where that's even happened to me. Now I know a lot from watching everyone's videos, and I have, started reading all the websites and everything. And I've invested quite a bit of money into finding out what's good, and the digital comics helped me do that too. So yeah, comic book stores should think about that more. I don't know if any comic book store owners are there. They might not see an immediate huge sale, but I think it would behoove them in the long run. It would help them gather up people. I mean, most people at comic book stores are very helpful. If you ask them questions and tell them what you like, they'll help you find some good comics. But the average person, like my friend wandering into the store, he isn't going to ask those questions usually. He's just going to look around, see if anything makes sense to him to grab. He may grab some stuff and it not make sense to him, like he's in the middle of a story, or it's not the kind of thing he was expecting. And then, he'll try again 10 years later. And you can put stuff of interest to the hardcore fans at the back of the store because they know where to go. They know what to look for. So anyway, that's sort of my little one fix. There's probably other things that comic book companies could do to give more entry. I mean, the New 52 was a start there, and now it's kind of fizzled away. A lot of New 52 books would be hard to pick up today, particularly, some of the best ones like Wonder Woman. We're all looking for good comics, really. Longbox Review. Yes, Longbox Review. I'm forgetting his actual name. Eric, maybe? I apologize if I got that wrong. He had a video a week or two ago where he asked, look at the time. Oh, I gotta get going. He asked a question about how long do you stick with comics. And I pick up a lot of comics, or I usually pick up a lot of comics, where I buy the first issue, see if I like it, buy the second issue, and if I've liked the first issue, the second issue is still a big testing point for me, and at that point I'll drop it. So I've dropped a lot of books on the second issue. And it's not because I'm fickle or just trying to collect number ones. It's because I'm looking for good new books, but I can only afford to buy so many. So I try a lot of books at the beginning of their run, and I stick with some of them. And I think even though the comic book, some people may cynically think the reason #1 sells so well is just because people are these avid collectors and can be sucked dry from their collecting habits. I think a lot of us, we'd love to get a collectible book at the same time, but a lot of us get excited with each new #1 or each new hyped up #1 because we think we might find something more good to read. And there is a lot of more good to read out there. And several of us have commented, that since watching YouTube and getting involved with each other, we find more and more books to buy and have a bigger and bigger list of good comic books to read, which is exciting until we can't afford them all anymore. But that's what we're all about, wanting to find more good comics to read. So I think that covers a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about that I hadn't gotten around to. So, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. And I want to give someone a gift. I can only give one person a gift at the moment. So those of you who've made it to the end of the video will know, put in the comments, it's a mystery. And I will draw amongst those people who put that in the comments. And the one person whose name I draw will get a mystery box or mystery package of comic books. I don't even know what it's going to be yet. It's not going to be the most amazing comics in the world, but it might be some fun stuff. So I'll talk to you all later. It's a mystery in the comments if you feel like getting a box of comics. If you don't have enough to read already, I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.